Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it. The gravel crunched under my tires as I pulled into the driveway, the sound oddly sharp in the quiet night. I barely noticed it because my focus locked on something impossible to ignore, the unfamiliar black truck parked in my spot. Its shiny chrome reflected the porch light, mocking me like a beacon of unwelcome truths. I froze. My mind raced with plausible explanations. A contractor. A delivery gone wrong. None of it made sense. My wife, Elisa, hadn't mentioned expecting anyone, and at midnight, no legitimate reason came to mind. My pulse quickened, and a cold, knowing dread crept into my chest. Grabbing my phone, I opened our last text exchange from earlier that evening. Love you. I'm exhausted after yoga tonight. See you tomorrow after your trip. Her cheerful words suddenly felt like venom. I parked on the shoulder of the road, killing the engine quietly. Slipping out of the car, I moved through the darkness, the crisp night air biting against my skin. As I approached the house, I could feel my heartbeat echoing in my ears. The porch light flickered, casting erratic shadows across the front door. Then I saw it, a flicker of movement through the sheer bedroom curtains. My breath hitched. A man's silhouette loomed behind them, unmistakable, moving with a familiarity that turned my blood to ice. I stepped back, pressing my back against the wall of the house. Stay calm, Stephen. Think. My hands shook as I debated storming inside. Confronting them now felt reckless, but walking away seemed impossible. Faint laughter floated down, muffled but unmistakable. Eliza's laugh. It wasn't the casual chuckle she gave to strangers. It was her unrestrained, intimate laugh, the one she used when she felt completely at ease. I inched toward the window on the side of the house. My sneakers barely made a sound on the grass, but my racing thoughts roared in my head. Peering through the edge of the curtain, I caught them. Eliza sat on the edge of the bed, her hair tumbling over her shoulders, her face alight with a smile I hadn't seen in years. The man stood over her, his hand brushing against her cheek with a tenderness that felt like a dagger to my chest. My stomach churned, bile rising in my throat. I stumbled back, the world around me spinning. My hands clenched into fists as I fought the urge to charge through the door. Not now, not like this. My phone buzzed in my pocket, pulling me out of my spiraling thoughts. It was Eliza, her text read, "Sweet dreams, love. Can't wait to see you tomorrow." A sharp, bitter laugh escaped my lips. I stared at the screen, the words taunting me. With trembling fingers, I texted back, "Same here, love you too." I shoved the phone back into my pocket and turned toward my car, my steps shaky but determined. Confrontation could wait. Tonight, I needed distance. Tomorrow, I would figure out how to dismantle the life Eliza had so carelessly destroyed. The cabin was the first place that came to mind, a solitary sanctuary deep in the woods, far from prying eyes, and far from her. The moment I turned off the main road, the towering pines enveloped me, their dense shadows swallowing the car's headlights. The tension in my chest loosened just slightly, but my mind buzzed with one question: what's my next move? I gripped the steering wheel tighter, the images of last night still seared into my brain. Her smile, his touch, the betrayal. The urge to confront Eliza bubbled inside me, but I couldn't risk letting my emotions take over. Not yet. Play it smart. Before I lost reception, I pulled over and tapped out a message. Work trip got extended. Won't be back until Tuesday. Love you. The lies tasted bitter, but they were necessary. Within seconds, her reply came. Miss you already. Stay safe. Xoxo. I stared at her words, fury igniting in my chest. The audacity. She's with him right now, and she's texting me like nothing's wrong. My hand itched to hurl the phone, but instead I shoved it into the glove compartment and drove on. When I finally reached the cabin, the air felt heavier, quieter. I stepped inside, flicking on the single overhead bulb that cast a yellowish glow over the rustic interior. Dust hung in the air, undisturbed since my last visit months ago. Dropping my bag on the old leather couch, I poured myself a drink, the amber liquid swirling as my hand trembled. A knock at the door snapped me out of my spiraling thoughts. My heart jolted. No one should know I'm here. Setting the glass down, I grabbed the closest thing resembling a weapon, a heavy poker from the fireplace, and approached the door cautiously. "Stephen, it's me," came the familiar voice of my brother Miles. I exhaled sharply, setting the poker aside before opening the door. Miles stepped in, his face lined with concern. "What the hell's going on? You called me in the middle of the night, saying you needed to get away, and now you're holed up out here like a fugitive." I gestured for him to sit, pouring him a drink. I didn't know who else to call, I admitted, the words heavier than I expected. He studied me for a moment before leaning forward. "Stephen, you're scaring me. What's going on?" I hesitated. Saying it aloud would make it real. "Eliza," I began, my voice cracking. "She's cheating on me." Miles' eyes widened, and he set his glass down with a thud. "Are you sure?" "I saw them," I said, the bitterness in my tone unmistakable. "Last night, at the house." Miles leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "God, Stephen." I don't need pity," I interrupted sharply. "I need a plan. I can't just walk away from this." He nodded slowly. "Okay, first things first. You need proof. Solid proof. Not just for the divorce, but for yourself." I stared at him, the idea planting itself firmly in my mind. Proof. Something undeniable. How? Miles smirked faintly, the kind of grin that meant he had an idea. Nola's always had a knack for sniffing out secrets. Let her help. I hesitated. Nola, Miles' wife, had a reputation for being nosy, but that might be exactly what I needed. "Fine," I said, "but this stays between us." Miles clinked his glass against mine. "You've got my word. Let's figure this out, together." The headlights flickered off as Nola parked her car down the street from my house. She had insisted on doing this herself, claiming her natural curiosity would keep things subtle. I wasn't convinced, but desperation left me no room to argue. "Keep your phone on," she whispered when I called to confirm she was in position. "I'll need a quick getaway if things go south." "Just don't get caught," I muttered. "Trust me, I'm a pro at this." Her smirk was almost audible through the line. From my vantage point at the cabin, I gripped my phone tightly, listening to the faint rustle of leaves and the occasional hum of passing cars on her end. "I see the truck," Nola whispered suddenly, her voice tense. "It's parked at the end of the driveway, same one you described." My heart thudded against my ribs. "What else? Are they there?" "Patience," she murmured. The sound of her footsteps on gravel was barely audible, and I imagined her creeping closer, staying in the shadows. Minutes passed like hours. I paced the small cabin, the floor creaking beneath me. Then, her voice came through again, hushed and hurried. "They're in the living room. Curtains are open just enough to see. Stephen, I think they're..." "What?" My pulse quickened. "They're laughing, holding wine glasses." Her tone was laced with disgust. "Like they don't have a care in the world." A sharp pang hit my chest, anger surging hot through my veins. "Get pictures," I managed, my voice strained. "I'm on it," she replied. A soft click followed, the sound of her phone camera capturing the scene. For a moment, there was silence. Then I heard a sharp intake of breath. "Oh my God," Nola whispered. "What is it?" I demanded, my stomach twisting. "She's texting you," Nola said, her voice shaking with equal parts disbelief and rage. "I can see her phone screen. She's sending you a message right now while sitting with him." My phone buzzed, and I stared at the screen. "I miss you. Can't wait for you to come home." The hypocrisy made my fist clench. Unbelievable. "Stephen," Nola cut in, her voice urgent. "I've got enough. I'm getting out of here before someone sees me." "Good," I said tightly. "Get back safely." The call ended, but the weight of the night hung heavy in the air. Her deceit wasn't just betrayal, it was a performance. And I'd been the audience. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Elisa. "Don't work too hard. Thinking of you." I tossed the phone onto the couch and stared at the cold fireplace. The images Nola captured would solidify my resolve, but now, something darker simmered inside me. The smell of fresh coffee hit me the moment I stepped into Olivia's office. She greeted me with a professional yet warm smile, motioning toward a leather chair. I didn't sit. My thoughts were still racing from Nola's call last night, and my body felt too tense to relax. "Steven," she said, her voice calm but firm, "take a seat. Let's talk about what's going on." Reluctantly, I lowered myself into the chair, leaning forward, elbows on my knees. "I've got proof," I began, my voice tight. "Photos, text messages, everything." Olivia tilted her head slightly. "And how are you feeling about that?" "Angry, betrayed, but mostly determined." I met her gaze, and for the first time in days, I felt steady. She's been lying to my face, and now I know what kind of person she really is. She nodded thoughtfully. "That's understandable, but before you take any action, let's talk about your next steps. You've mentioned divorce. Are you ready for the fallout that comes with it?" Before I could answer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I frowned, pulling it out. It was Eliza. "Sorry," I muttered, silencing the call. Olivia raised an eyebrow, still communicating with her. "Barely," I admitted. "She keeps pretending everything is fine, but I don't know the truth." Olivia leaned forward. "Steven, here's the hard part," confronting her. "You can't move forward until you address this directly. But when you do, you need a plan. What do you want to achieve? Closure? Revenge?" Her question caught me off guard. I want my life back, my dignity." She nodded again, jotting something down. "That's a start. But remember, clarity is key. You need to make her understand you're not someone she can manipulate. How do you confront her will set the tone for what comes next." As I mulled over her words, another buzz interrupted us. A text this time. "Miss you, love. Can't wait to see you." I clenched the phone, my jaw tightening. Olivia's sharp eyes didn't miss it. What did she say? "She's doubling down on her lies," I said bitterly, tossing the phone onto the small table between us. Olivia studied me for a moment. "Then use that," she said firmly. "Let her dig her own grave, but you don't have to go through this alone." For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt a small flicker of relief. I wasn't alone, and with Olivia's guidance, I might finally be able to confront Eliza, not just with anger, but with purpose. I arrived home earlier than expected. The house was unusually quiet, the type of silence that feels heavy, like it's holding its breath. I stepped inside, each creak of the floorboards sounding louder than it should. In the corner of the living room, Eliza's yoga mat was rolled up neatly, a mocking reminder of her fake alibis. "Eliza," I called out, my voice cutting through the stillness. She emerged from the kitchen, her smile as bright as it was deceptive. "Hey, you're home early. I thought you'd be gone until tomorrow." "I bet you did," I said, dropping my bag by the door. My tone must have tipped her off. The smile faltered, her eyes narrowing slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" she asked, crossing her arms. I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled my phone from my pocket, opened the photo gallery, and handed it to her. Her hand hesitated before taking it. The color drained from her face as she swiped through the pictures Nola had taken. "Steven, I can explain." "Don't," I interrupted, my voice cold. "Don't insult me with another lie. Yoga classes, late-night work sessions. You think I wouldn't find out?" She set the phone down, her hands trembling. "It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't mean for it to happen." "Didn't mean for what to happen, Eliza?" I snapped. "Sneaking around, sleeping with someone else while texting me like nothing's wrong." Tears welled up in her eyes, but I didn't feel the least bit moved. She wasn't crying out of guilt. This was panic, pure and simple. "It's over," I said, my voice steady. "I've already contacted a lawyer. I'll be out of here by the end of the week." Her expression shifted from pleading to defiance. "You think you're so perfect, Steven. Always working, never here. What did you expect me to do? Sit around and wait for you to notice me?" The audacity of her words hit me like a slap. I laughed bitterly. "So this is my fault now? Unbelievable." She took a step closer, desperation creeping into her voice. "You can't just leave. We can fix this. We can." A knock at the door cut her off. She froze, her eyes darting toward the hallway. "Expecting someone?" I asked, my sarcasm sharp enough to draw blood. Before she could respond, I moved to the door and yanked it open. Standing there, looking equally shocked to see me was him, the man from the photos. Wow, I said, stepping aside. Perfect timing. Come on in. Let's all talk this out together. The man hesitated, glancing at Eliza. She shook her head frantically, her face a mix of terror and fury. Don't, she hissed at him. But he stepped inside anyway, his shoulders squared. Look, Stephen, I didn't mean to cause any trouble. This was a mistake. Is that what you call sneaking into another man's house? I asked, my tone calm but laced with venom. I'm leaving, Eliza announced, grabbing her coat. I don't need to stand here and be ambushed. Go ahead, I said, my voice cold. But don't forget, this house is in my name, and I've already frozen our joint accounts. Good luck explaining that to him. Her eyes widened, the weight of her actions finally sinking in. Without another word, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. I turned back to the man who was shuffling uncomfortably by the doorway. You can go too, I said flatly. He nodded, mumbling an apology before slipping out into the night. As the door clicked shut, I stood in the empty hallway, the adrenaline fading. For the first time in weeks, the house felt like mine again. Eliza's departure left the house in a strange stillness, but my mind was anything but quiet. Her betrayal had already cut me deep. The following day, I made a call. Noah answered on the first ring. Stephen, everything okay? She asked, her voice cautious but warm. Not really, I admitted. But I need one more favor from you. It's about him, Eliza's guy. Do you have a way to find out if he's married? There was a pause. Give me a day, she said. It didn't take that long. By evening, she texted me a name and address. Rachel Turner, his wife. Rachel was everything I expected, and more. I arrived at their suburban home under the guise of returning something he'd left behind. She answered the door, her dark hair pinned up neatly, her eyes sharp and curious as they landed on me. I'm Stephen, I said, extending my hand. We should talk. Her brow furrowed. About what? About your husband and my wife. She froze, her expression a mix of confusion and alarm. I could see the pieces falling into place as I continued. Your husband's been having an affair with my wife, Eliza, I said. And judging by the level of planning involved, I doubt it's his first. Her lips parted, but no words came out. She motioned for me to step inside, shutting the door behind me. Do you have proof? She finally asked, her voice trembling. I handed her my phone, the incriminating photos from Nola's stakeout clear as day. She scrolled through them in silence, her face pale. I had no idea, she whispered. He said he was working late, traveling for business. Same script my wife used, I said with a bitter laugh. But we don't have to let them get away with this. Her eyes met mine, a flicker of understanding sparking between us. What started as a tense conversation over betrayal turned into a long evening of shared pain and anger. By the time midnight rolled around, the tension had shifted. You know, Rachel said, her tone lighter than before, we deserve better than this. We do, I agreed, my gaze lingering on hers. One thing led to another, a brush of hands, a shared glance too long to ignore. The walls we'd both built around our emotions crumbled in that moment. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming something stolen from us. The next morning, I woke up in Rachel's bed, sunlight streaming through the curtains. As I dressed, I felt no regret, only clarity. Back at my house, I wasted no time. I called my lawyer and gave him the go-ahead to file the divorce papers. When Eliza returned later that afternoon, her demeanor was smug, as if she thought she still held the upper hand. But I was ready. I know about the payment you were expecting, I said calmly, holding her phone out. Her face drained of color. Stephen, I can expel. Save it, I interrupted, cutting her off with a wave of my hand. The papers are already filed. You'll be hearing from my lawyer. Her mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air, but she had nothing left to say. As she packed her things and left for good, I felt a weight lift. The house, my life, finally felt like mine again. And Rachel? Well, I wasn't sure where things would go from here, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was walking towards something new, something better. Friends, What do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.